Okay, so when we did the Star Barn, and there is a documentary, you can get it when you come to one of the events when the store's open. I meant to bring it tonight where you can get it online. We took 3 years and we recorded everything of the taking down, dismantling, moving, and putting back up of the Star Barn. So it's called The Moving of an Icon, A Window into Our Past. So it meticulously went through how we did all we did, spoke to all the different artisans. Yeah, that's it. That's it. So we, and that really was a very, very large investment because we figured it's only going to happen once because we rebuilt the Star Barn the way they would have done it in a barn raising in 1877 using 100 people on pulleys, on ropes, pulling up those huge vents and securing them in place. So it's amazing we did that. And somebody said, I missed it. Well, I'll come to the next one. I said, trust me, there'll never be a next one. So, yes. The other part of the question? Oh, so one of the things that really was put on my heart is the property we have is 280 acres, and there's going to be 5 farmsteads. Each of those farmsteads, Star Barn's one of them. One of them's with the barn from Bainbridge, the stone barn we moved, that'll have a log house. The barns of Belmont will be one. The original Ironstone Ranch one is there, and then the Klein Chocolate Factory, the barns that they had down in the lower field, is going to have 5 farmsteads. Those farmsteads are going to be historically preserved buildings, 28 in total, that would have been typical in a Pennsylvania German farm. There's 28 different types of building. We just had a couple come to us. They said, our mother owns a farm up north. It has an original log butcher barn and all the equipment, including the stove. She wants to donate it to you. I said, I'll be right there. So I drove up, went and looked at it, and you can't make these things up. I go in to look at this log barn that was a butcher barn for the cattle. We got the smokehouse from Hummelstown. If you remember, there was a really cool smokehouse that was on a farm with a big house. I always wanted it. One day the builder calls me up and says, hey, I'm going to tear that down tomorrow. You have 24 hours if you want to come get it. And oh, by the way, the mansion that's there, whatever you want in stone and wood, you have 24 hours. He said, I have a brand new $750,000 piece of equipment sitting there. I know your guy knows how to operate it. You're welcome to use it. Now, nobody does that. We had 3 crews, went there, took all the wood, the stone, the smokehouse, rebuilt this 1844 smokehouse from Hummelstown. So now we're going to get this butcher barn. I go in and I look at the stove with its copper kettles that they would have used to cook off the meat. And it was made in, ready, Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania by A.P. Buchanson. I'm like, come on, what are the odds? I didn't even know A.P. Buchanson made that stove, and there it is in almost pristine condition. So we're going to be moving that. And another man, I looked 25 years, and you'll probably know this one because this is near Middletown, but if you drive on 441 out of Middletown heading towards, past 3 Mile Island, heading towards Bainbridge, familiar with the road? There's a building that almost comes out onto the road. It's made of stone. Remember that? And it's got all those nice stone corners, right? So I've looked at that for 25 years. I got an inspiration a few weeks ago to go find the owner and ask him, because one of the buildings we want on the property is a stone grist mill. That's what that is. So I go on a Sunday, to the grace of God, end up finding out who the owner is, end up having the owner call me, end up going to meet the owner and saying, I'd like to be able to take this, move it down, and move it to the property and put it back up and restore it. And he said, my father, who's 90 or 92 or something, is older, he would love to have you to have that, is what they finally said to me. So we are going to be taking that down in July, moving it stone by stone, and then we have the architects coming to redesign and put it back up and put the water wheel and everything back on it, and it's going to become, we believe, the grist mill inn. So you'll actually, it'll be 8 bedrooms. Because again, I can't make these stories up. A man calls me up and said, hey, I'm taking down this mill, and it's got all this equipment in from the 1800s. Are you interested in that equipment? because we're just gonna, ready, push it out the back in a pile and get rid of it. I'm like, it's an hour and 15 minutes away. I said, I'll be right there. So I get in my car and I drive up to Millersburg, Pennsylvania, where we got our Millersburg barn, which was 1867. And I go and look at this mill equipment. There's 28 pieces of equipment, all driven by belts, all driven by a wheel that was a water wheel, in mint condition, all small equipment that did all kind of amazing things out of wood, some steel pieces, but out of wood, with all the names made in Muncie, Pennsylvania, made. It's like a museum. I said, yeah, I'll take it all. So we're getting our last truckload tomorrow, and then we're gonna refinish each of those pieces, but that'll tell the story of what they used in the grist mill with each one of these unique pieces of equipment. Because one of the things that was put on my heart is to have the barns of Lancaster County, and yes, the Star Barn at one point was part of Lancaster County, I think we might know that, was part of Lancaster County, so it's called the Barns of Lancaster County, and you'll be able to go, tourists from all over the world, and see these 28 different unique buildings: tobacco barn, smoke house, butcher house, mill. Yes, that's one of my visions. Oh yes. I'm coming back from hunting pheasants, and I've always driven by this beautiful stone chapel. And I'm going by with my buddy and said, man, if I could move that, it's in Lebanon, if I could move that chapel, I'd put that on the property. I haven't drawn on my property the footprint, but I said, man, if I could move that, I would move it. But I said, you have to take down all the electric wires. And I said, that would be an impossible feat. And my buddy says, well, why don't you do it like you did your barn? Take it down stone by stone and put it back up. I went, huh, that's a good idea. So if you didn't read it on the internet or in the paper, as of Monday, I think it was, we bought an 1888 stone chapel called the Coleman Chapel, just outside of Lebanon, that is magnificent. The stained glass windows in that, the rosette windows, are unbelievable. It's got a stone basement that's got brick porticos. It is a treasure beyond treasure. So yes, that will be moved. Yes, that'll start July of next year. And that will be, because to us, so I would always ask the Lord, what do you think? And the answer I get, is the way I talk to the Lord, is, it'd be nice to have my house on your property. And I'm like, all right, God, we can do that. So I forgot about the chapel. Phew. Other than that, so if anybody has buildings or things that maybe you'd be interested in, phew. I'm going to take a breath again. Questions? Yes.
Do you have somebody to follow on?
Oh, good question. Great question.
I know God's looking out for you, but...
Yeah, so great question. As of a month ago, God brought that person up into our hearts, and we brought him on board. Whether it be the final person, we don't know, but what my wife and I have done is, when we pass, that whole 280 acres, all the buildings, everything, go into our family trust, along with our corporate stock, similar to a Milton Hershey, corporate stock to preserve and to care for all those buildings, because you can't give them to the state, because that's not going to work. The finance to keep that up, they would not do. So it will be preserved then as a nonprofit to aid abandoned children worldwide, but also to maintain all those buildings. So that's the long-term vision. That's already set up in our will. Not that we're ready to go anytime soon. Yes, young lady.
Are all the people who work currently at your property volunteers?
No. No.
So, okay, can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So we employ 32 employees plus volunteers. It's a lot of land, a lot of care, a lot to take care of that property. People don't have any clue what it costs to maintain 280 acres with flowers and trees. And put up 600,000 LED lights every year for Christmas, and then take them back down in January and February. All these things take time. So we have 32 employees. Yes?
Do you have regular restaurants there? I've never been there. How do you know?
So we have a commercial kitchen in the Star Barn in the hay barn, second floor of the hay barn. And so when we have dinners, they're a special event dinner. The ones we're gonna have this year are just at Christmas time. And they're pretty spectacular because you get the Christmas light drive-through. There's a show. We have a world-renowned Irish tenor. We have a servant stage play group that does it. So you come for a dinner, but it's also like a whole package of a show. And it's a Christmas dinner.
How do we find out about it?
Just go to Stone Gables Estate or Star Barn, and it'll show you everything on the website. Yep, it'll show you when all the events are, when the train runs, and I'm telling you, you wanna have fun, 4th of July, come 4th of July. The firework order that I placed is 4 times what I had every other year. It's phenomenal, and it's gonna be really special. All the different events, the different groups, it's gonna be unbelievable. So the 4th of July, it's $25, you park, you can have up to 8 people in your car and go have fun. So we wanna try and make it affordable for people, but we still have to be able to try and get at least some funds to come in to help offset costs. But for $25, up to 8 can come in a car and just enjoy yourself. But 4th of July is our next big thing, and it's basically pretty exciting. Because you're sitting right there and the fireworks are going off right above the Star Barn. Unbelievable. Yes?
Where do you keep all like these things you're acquiring and like you're like the curator that keeps track of all?
To answer the question, yes. So the National Christmas Center has 2 curators that care for all those, because a lot of people are donating their collections. They're going into retirement homes, or they don't want their collection separated, so they've come to us and said, would you please? And then we share with them. What we do is we make them part of our story of the National Christmas Center when they make those types of donations. But yes, so there's curators for the Star Barn and the different buildings, and then my wife and I are going to be doing the books that are going to tell all these stories with all the pictures. You have to educate people. Yeah. Yes.
I was actually there when you had the barn raising, and I was one of the people that made one of the wooden pegs.
Oh yes.
Did you really use them?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
See, that's a thrill to me to know that I'm
Yeah.
part of the Star Barn.
Your name's on it too, right?
Yeah.
It's in there.
Yeah.
Yep, we absolutely did. And like I said, and I know never to say never, but I don't think I'll ever raise another barn. That was, this is a labor of love, ladies and gentlemen. Yes,
I've got a couple questions, actually. Your garden conservatory that's there.
yes.
Did you build that, or did you garner that from somewhere?
So I saw it, loved it in an ad, went to Atlanta with my wife to try and buy it, and the lady didn't cut me a good deal and wouldn't reduce the price and made up this story, how rare it was, this, that, and the other thing. Then we go fishing at St. Michael's down in Maryland. We go by this little shop, and my wife said, let's stop in there. Now, understand, the Holy Spirit uses my wife all the time. I just got plugged up right ear and almost a deaf left ear. But anyhow, I finally agreed to go in this little store. With the little store, and we started seeing what they had. We said, well, can you get this green solarium, similar to the Sound of Music, comes from England? He said, oh yeah, and he quotes us a price, half the price of what it was in Atlanta. So it is a replica of one from England. We have another one that's black and gold that's going to be put up on Tulip Poplar Knoll, which is in a stand of Norway pines that are over 100 years old, and you can either have your event there, or you can get married there, or you can have a proposal there, or you can go into that during public events and watch the train go by. And that one's black and gold. It's magnificent. So that gets put up this year. Yes.
One final question.
Oh, you're good. You can ask all you want.
Because it's about historic preservation, how would you find all the craftspeople that you employed? I mean, you had an amazing amount of people that helped out.
Well, I'm a meticulous nut. It's got to be right, and it's got to be the right wood, and it's got to be done correctly. So I always attribute God brings these people to us. I never knew these people in Rhode Island for the weather vanes, and they did it by hand. I mean, they sat there and hammered copper by hand to make them, or know about the Timber Framers Guild in Chicago. All these came to be. Now, Holderman Brothers is our stonemasons for 25 years. There's nobody like them. They know how to mix the concrete to match the way it would have looked on the original Star Barn with the different aggregate colors in it, with the blacks, the different ones, to make it look old and original. And then to also do the different, whether it's a raised joint or it's a sponge joint. So the stonemasons came that way, but then it's just, we didn't restore them, or restored every window and every pane of glass. And it's on this video, this man tells the story of the original white pine. That'll last for generations because it's old growth. Now we grow white pine, cut it down, it's green, it's wet, it's not old, and it doesn't last outside. The old stuff, it'll last generations. Other questions? Yes?
The Manor House.
Yes.
Is that the house that was on Lumber Street?
So it's the one that half of it's still there, the other half burnt down. So if you go to the Star Barn location,
Right.
the front half is still there.
Oh, okay.
The back half burned down that had the bell tower.
Right.
Now, we have the original bell tower. It was in the woods. It didn't burn up. So it had the bell tower, and that would be the summer kitchen. Yep,
To answer your question, the one on Lumber Street, that was Waters' summer house.
that's right.
And he actually went, he lived, but he never, no, he was built in 1898, he died in 1901. So he only lived there a couple years. But am I right, David, he never lived at the Star Barn?
No, that was just for workers. But I would move that house if I could.
It might come up for sale again.
I was just for sale not long ago, I think. Yeah, it's a beautiful property. You know, preserving history, preserving things. I walked by the barn one day and I said, Lord, again, this is me talking to God because this is the way I talk to him. I said, Lord, I don't understand. Why do I get so much joy restoring, renewing, resurrecting, repurposing these old barns? He said, because, David, you share my heart. That's what I do with people. I renew them, I restore them, I repurpose them, because I look and I don't see the outside, which is what the world did to them. I see the precious beauty, just like I did with the Star Barn. I see the precious beauty inside. So you share my heart. And together, you're using my palette, which is the land. You're using my oils, which are the stone and the wood. And together, we're recreating these beautiful historic structures to share with the world, to honor the craftsmen of the past and bless the craftsmen of today that I entrusted those gifts with. And I went, sounds good to me, because if you have joy, then the Lord's at work. Other questions? Yes, dear? You have another idea, another inspiration?
As a little comedy, share about what happened.
Okay, two things. So I'll share the first one. So they're building the Star Barn. And remember, I could see where every building went. I could see the vision. I knew the direction. They're building them. They finished the hog barn. And I'm looking and I'm like, now I paid professional land development, architects, drawings, this, that. And I'm looking and I'm like, something's wrong. So I drive up to the old site, it still had some of the foundation in it, and realized they built the hog barn 13 feet in the wrong location. It had narrowed in and made a small courtyard instead of the original, which was parallel with the Star Barn. So I called up the architectural firm and said, you guys made a mistake. I said, didn't you go to the site? They said, well, we looked at it. Well, we just assumed this is what it would look like. I said, well, it's called errors in omission. It's an insurance you have, and we're going to lift up the hog barn completely, and we're going to move it 13 feet. And my wife says, you're not going to move that 13 feet. Oh, I said, absolutely. Because every time I look at that, with all I've invested, I'm going to remember I should have moved it 13 feet. So yes, we moved it. So I'm going to give you another God story, because I love God stories. So one day I'm walking around the pond of the Star Barn, and the Lord said, David. I said, yes, Lord. You use the word impossible a lot, don't you? Oh, I said, absolutely. He said, especially when I choose to use my precious daughter, your wife. Oh, I said, I use it with her all the time. He said, well, would you do me a favor? I said, what's that? Would you spell the word impossible for me, but spell it slowly? I said, sure. I am. He said, stop. Who's that? I am. Oh, I said, I am who am. That's you. He said, yep, what's the rest of the word? Possible. Possible. Never heard that before, never heard it again. One day I'm walking around the pond, I look up at the American flag. A pastor friend of mine said, David, the only thing missing on the property is the American flag. Of course, me, I do everything big, so I put an 80-foot pole, 40-foot flag, put the American flag. So I look up at the American flag, and the Lord speaks to my heart. Do you know why the flag is the way it is? I said, Betsy Ross knitted it into her house. I don't know. That's all I know. He said, well, let me tell you the real reason. Your flag is striped because by my stripes you were healed. It comes from the book of Isaiah. The colors are red and white to represent the birth of the church when my side was pierced with the spear. Red for the blood of salvation, white for the waters of baptism. The field of blue represents your true home, which is heaven. And the 5-pointed star over each of your states represents my sovereignty over each and every one of your states. And when the flag has the fringe of gold, it shows my kingship over your country. And I went, well, I never heard that before. So those are my fun stories, my God moments, my things like that I have on the property. They happen all the time. It's fun. If you haven't come to the Christmas light drive-thru, don't miss it. It's bigger and better every year. It's 3 miles, takes about an hour. It is a jaw-dropping all moment. And the reason I did it, because the Lord gave me an inspiration. When Longwood Gardens, Hershey Park took out pretty much everything faith-based, and it just became a light show, the Lord said, why don't you do one that tells the true meaning of Christmas? The birth and celebration of the birth of my son, Jesus Christ. And I said, you know what? I'm all in. So when you go through the light show, we give you a free booklet, and we tell you the true story, the true meaning of Christmas, the celebration of the birth of Christ. Because we believe as stewards, everything we do in that property is meant to bring God all honor, all glory, and all praise. And every dollar we raise is meant to help special needs children worldwide. That's our hearts. That's who we are. And everybody is welcome. Everybody. Any other questions? Don't be shy. Yes, ma'am.
What is your background that allowed you to accomplish all this?
Well, I dropped out of college. So I believe God gives each of us gifts. And my parents, because I had ready 57 aquariums in my parents' basement, and I bred and raised tropical fish and sold them to make money, they thought I should be either an ichthyologist, which studies fish, or a marine biologist. So I said, okay, so I'll go to college to be a marine biologist. Second year of college, when I realized that I'd be behind a microscope for 9 hours out of every day, and I wouldn't be with the public, I just like to scuba dive, I'm like, no, I'm not going to stay, so I dropped out. And I opened up in Elizabethtown, at Elizabethtown Trading Post, a market stand, then at Woods, then at Green Dragon, started me in a business which was called Dave's Stereo. It's now DAS. DAS is a worldwide company that employs over 800 associates located in Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania, also Franklin, Kentucky, down in Virginia, and out in Salt Lake City, Utah. We're the largest distributor, manufacturer to travel centers, truck stops in the world, providing everything that's not food or medicine. If you go in there, if you look at the tags, it says DAS, which means Dave, Abel, Stereo, from Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania. So through the grace of God, that took me on that journey. But then 17 years ago, when I hit a wall and broke into 1,000 pieces, figuratively, God restored me and said, now I want you to use all your gifts and talents, but for my church. So I left the company, still in the board of directors, but now every day of my life is, so we opened up Stewardship and Mission of Faith, which fights pornography worldwide. It fights for the restoration of marriage, restoration of women who've been abused. We do that worldwide. That's one of the nonprofits we opened. We did Brittany's Hope Foundation, the death of our daughter. Brittany was killed in a car accident. That's helped over 1,500 children come home to loving families here in the U.S. And we've built orphanages in Ethiopia, Kenya, Vietnam, and done all kinds of projects in those countries and worldwide. So whatever the Lord wants me to do, I'm all in. I'm still allowed to be on the board of the company, but I could no longer be in the company. So through the grace of God, 17 years ago, when he finally woke me up, That's when everything exploded in our company. Our company has been blessed now 46 years in business, and the profits, even through COVID was our biggest year ever. Because we got a letter from Homeland Security that said you cannot shut. Because if you shut down, trucks can't roll. If trucks can't roll, product can't roll. So we got a letter from Homeland Security to Washington DC, you must stay open. So we stayed open, we had to, by law, and through that grace of God, it was our biggest year in the history of the company. So that's how I can do what I do. Other questions? Yes?
What is the longest beam that was in the Star Bar?
So the sleeper beams are 65 feet long, uncut. There's 37 of those. Those are the one, I'm sorry. Yeah, the sleeper beams. The sleepers lay on top of the summer beams. The summer beams are each, think about this, 15 inches by 12 inches. There's 3 runs of them. They're 65 feet long straight and joined in the middle, so they're 130 feet long combined straight. Can you imagine how big those trees were? Those would have been all white oaks because they carry the weight. Now, the beams in the bottom that have been ripped out and replaced with steel, through the grace of God, we took a lot of other barns down. We knew because of the blocks that the beams, where they were still there, so we replaced all those with original beams, chamfered them, so you would never know that the original beams were lost, but the ones we put in match correct age, correct everything. Other questions? Nothing? Going once?